Hello, I'm Lorene Mills, and welcome to Report from Santa Fe. Our guest today is Diane Granito. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lorene.
Well, I've wanted to interview for a long time. You are with Children, Youth, and Families Department, where you're the Adoption Events Coordinator. But you are the founder of the Heart Gallery, and you are this month makes the 10th anniversary, 10 years. You've been doing this extraordinary project. Tell us what the Heart Gallery is and how you came about founding it.
Well, the Heart Gallery is a project that connects talented photographers with foster children who need families. They donate their time, their travel, everything to capture the real spirit of these children. So it allows the children to step out of the shadows and become more than just a statistic. I was looking through a magazine called Futures when I had my job interview 11 years ago now, and the woman who interviewed me, Ellie Ortiz, said, what do you think about getting better pictures of these children? And it was immediately apparent that these photographs did not do the children justice.
No.
The social workers had these little cameras, and they would pretty much stand the kids against the wall because we had to have a photo for the files. But there was nothing in there that said anything about the quality of the photos. And let's face it, you and I and the social workers are not professional photographers. So I thought that was a great idea. And my first day on the job, I didn't have an office. My computer wasn't set up. So I headed over to the Gerald Peters Gallery. I thought I would ask if we had a display of portraits by top photographers, talented photographers, would they have an opening there? And I met a wonderful lady named Lisa Bronowitz. That turns out I went to high school with her back in Connecticut. And she checked with Jerry Peters, the owner of the gallery, and he said yes immediately, and Lisa was of great support. And we opened in March 2011. We're celebrating year-long, really, around the country. And we broke gallery records when we had the opening because people were so drawn to this idea, this new idea, and they wanted to know who these children were. So we had 1,200 people show up throughout the night, and we knew we were onto something when we placed 6 of the children with families that attended that evening.
One of the things that really interests me is that you saw that there was a need, better pictures of these kids. You say it's serendipity because you didn't have an office to hang out in your computer. You went out and did some legwork and immediately connected with Gerald Peters and he realized how important what you were doing was and gave you this space. And since then, it's gone national and international. I just, as I was doing my research, you've been on 2020, CBS News, ABC News had you as the person of the week, New York Times, People Magazine, Parade Magazine. It's just phenomenal. People are so captured by what you're doing.
Yes, and actually a slight correction. ABC News, Peter Jennings, right before he left, actually named the photographers the person of the week.
Well,
and I think that's a good distinction to make because they were focusing on the fact that these photographers, who some of them photographed celebrities, and that was part of the shoot that they did, were celebrity photographers photographing the children. And so it was an honor for the Heart Gallery, but it was also wonderful to have these photographers recognized. And we have 6,000 photographers across the country. We have access to them, and the Society of Media Photographers is fully on board with the Heart Gallery. And the more the media covered it, the more it grew. It was a domino effect. After the first Parade article came out, and that was written by a local reporter, Rosemary Zebart, who's also an adoptive mother and who loved the Heart Gallery, it just exploded. People magazine got hold of it, and we did the famous hat trick that the celebrities are all trying to do. New York Times Today and People in 1 week.
So one of the things that is so amazing about these photographers is that they really try to capture the real essence of these children. And by the time you haven't had a home or a family for 10 years or so, because these are usually older children or sibling groups, or, there's some problem that these children were not adopted as when they were much smaller. But they have a game face now. They're kind of tough, and they're just going to show you their
Yes.
game face. And the fact that these photographers go right through that game face into what is so almost the essence of a person in these
Yes.
photographs.
Yes, it's true. That's a good way to put it, Lorene. The game face is a kind of protection that they've developed against rejection and not having been adopted. And the photographers are amazing. The way they connect with the children. And we have some here in Santa Fe that I just love to watch in action. Jean Peach will set up a whole display, it's almost like a celebrity corner. When we have our big adoption events, we do shoots there. And he has the reflectors and the girls, even there's one girl named Domonica, for example, and she's known for not smiling, pretty much, that she's very quiet and she's very serious. And he has the most amazing portrait of her in our current art gallery. He got her to not just smile, but to smile from the heart. I mean, she really looks very happy. And of course, that's coming from within her. It's part of her, just like the sadness, that might reflect what she's been through. And to watch Jean in action, he just really connects with them and says, "Oh, great, you look like a movie star," and
Yeah.
and the kids get copies of their pictures, which is important. It's important that they don't go into a black hole where, this fun shoot happens and they have all these expectations and then they don't even see the results, so they get copies of the pictures.
And that helps with their self-image, too.
It does. It does. Sometimes just having the shoot done, having somebody focus on them and care enough to devote their time to doing this is a self-esteem boost for the kids.
But there is a little risk. I want to talk about some of the success stories, but sometimes there's the risk of the photographer falling in love with the kid
Yes.
that is being photographed.
Yes.
Show us Faye and tell us that story.
Faye.
Ah,
We all love Faye so much. This is Faye.
wow.
And
what a great
this is
photograph.
a portrait that was taken by Jackie Matei. Her name is spelled Mathey, but it's pronounced Matei. As you can see, she's an amazing photographer. So this was the second year of the Art Gallery, 2002, and I had assigned her to a different child in Albuquerque. And I called her at the last minute, and I asked her if I could change her assignment. I said, I don't know why, but there's this new little girl up in Las Vegas, and I want you to photograph her. So, being a trooper, she said, yeah, sure. So she went up there. She had a trunk full of shawls and different items of clothing for Faye to try on. And she just really connected with this child, so much so that she called me on the way home and said, I'm in trouble. She said, I really fell for this little girl. And she also called her husband, Courtney, and he was waiting in the driveway when she got there with his hand out, wanting to see the Polaroids, the test Polaroids that she had done. And before you knew it, they had applied to adopt her. The minute she walked into their home at age 10, she headed for the piano. Having never played the piano, she started putting notes together. And now she's an accomplished pianist and composer who played recently at the Lensic for our Art Gallery benefit.
So you're a bit of a matchmaker.
That happened with a friend of mine, too, Virginia Stark. I actually changed her assignment at the last minute and asked her if she would go up to Farmington to photograph a young girl who had just come in. Instead of going to Albuquerque, the girl's name was Katrina, and Virginia went up there. She went back to her hotel room and sat there for an hour or two afterwards just thinking in the dark, and eventually ended up adopting Katrina. And it has happened in other states also. I know Oklahoma has had a photographer adoption, and several of the Art Gallery organizers have adopted kids from their own art galleries.
I'd like you to show us the picture of the 5 siblings, another success story. that tell us about who saw this picture and what they did about it. These are 5 children
Yes.
holding hands, brothers and sisters, jumping over a mud puddle.
Yes, they are siblings who had been in foster care together for several years. I think it was 5 years, actually. There was an attorney in my office when I first started, Dan Perlman, and I used to go by and see these beautiful black and white photos on his walls, and each one told a story. I noticed when you looked at them, you could imagine the surroundings. So I asked him to go and photograph these kids. He captured them, in a moment of exhilaration and togetherness, and this was in the Hart Gallery down in Silver City. In Ruidoso, New Mexico, and a family from nearby Capitan. They were walking around minding their own business when they saw this picture, and they ended up adopting all 5 children.
And they kept the family together.
It did.
And they had
keep
no
the
other
family
children?
together, having
They've,
adopted. They had children of their own who
Uh-huh.
were older,
Uh-huh.
and that happens quite a bit, actually. The first 3 children adopted through any Hart Gallery were adopted here in New Mexico. They met their family at that first opening I was telling you about, and they actually had 6 children of their own. But they were approved to adopt, and we're just waiting, to be struck by the right children, I guess, because they actually met the girls that night. They were enthralled by their portrait, and so I ran to the other end of the gallery and brought the girls over, and they adopted them. But they already had 6 children of their own. It's very common.
Well, those are success stories from the past. I'd like you to show us a couple of pictures of children that are available for adoption now.
Oh, I would love to do that. People can also go on cyfd.org, and they can visit our Hart Gallery display area there and see these portraits and more. Actually, this one is brand new, and we haven't even posted it yet. This is Raphael and his little sister Esmeralda, and we're trying to place them together. As you can see, they're amazing kids, and I think they would make a great addition to any family. They really enjoyed the event where we got this photo. Alan Mitchell took this picture. He's a talented photographer, and this was at the Rock the Pit event we do with the Lobos every year at the Pit. And the kids were just having a great time, just being kids. And, Alan took them aside and photographed them. And here you have them.
So there are sibling groups, and then there are individuals. Let's
Yes.
look at
This
a
is
couple of the individuals.
Miss Shamonica, as we call her. Shamonica is 15, and I've had the pleasure of hanging out with her at a few things. We just did a guitar workshop with the teens where they got their own Fender guitars and lessons, and she had a great time there, mixing it up with the other kids, and she's very social. She seems a little shy at first, but once she gets to know you, she warms up, and people are always pointing out this portrait, and saying, what a beautiful girl. And it's true, she is a beautiful girl, but the photographer, Amy Parrish, also captured something more about her, as all our great Hart Gallery photographers do. They captured something about her that's saying, hey, what about me?
Yeah.
Now, this is the final waiting child, as we call them. This is Fred. Fred is 11. And as you can see from his expression with his little raised eyebrow there, he has a lot going on. The photographer traveled to him at his foster home and got this wonderful picture. And, Fred would make a great addition to a family where he can get that attention that he didn't get when he was younger, that all kids deserve. So he'd be a great addition to a single-parent family, to a family that doesn't have any other kids, so that he can just really be king of the roost for a change,
For a few years,
and
yeah.
he has a lot to offer a family, as do all our children.
Well, how many foster kids are in protective custody at the Children, Youth, and Families Department?
Well, here in New Mexico, on any given day, we have approximately 2,000 children in foster care. Some of them will go back home, and some of them will not be able to return home, and that is the court's decision. Based on information that is provided by the social workers and others involved in the case, the CASA workers and different people involved in the case, the court will decide after a certain amount of time, when the parents are given a chance to provide a safe and loving home, whether or not that child should go back home. If the court decides that the parents or biological caretakers have not done what they needed to do by following the plan that was laid out to them and providing a safe home, then they will move to terminate the parents' rights. And at that point, we look for what we call permanency in other directions. The first goal is to try to help the family to get the child back as long as the family has shown that they are ready to provide a safe and loving home. But at the same time, on a parallel track, the department is looking at other alternatives, maybe relatives, they're sought out at the beginning, and perhaps foster parents. A lot of our children are actually adopted by their foster parents who have been taking care of them during this time when their own parents have been working on their issues.
Could you tell us the difference between fostering and adopting?
Yes. When the children come into custody, there's a 10-day hearing, and the court decides whether the children should stay in custody. During that time, we would like to provide a family-oriented setting for the children, someplace where the children feel safe, and that is the foster family. These foster families can do anything from short-term to long-term care. The department does provide subsidies for them. The children all have medical coverage when they're there. But the important thing is that these children are in a safe family environment. Now, some of the children are placed in either group homes, especially the teens, because we don't have enough foster families for our older children. Or if they're going through a rough patch and they need some additional support, they could be in a what they call residential treatment center. But the ideal situation for them, as you can imagine, is a family.
Yeah.
And if the child does not go back home, then we seek to have the family adopt the child. If the foster family does not adopt the child, then we need to reach out to the larger community, including our approved adoptive parents. And that becomes permanent. When you adopt a child, the child is legally your child, just like a child that's born to you.
And the Children, Youth, and Families Department offers lots of support. I know they offer a training, 27-hour training, and they offer a respite care if you've, had suddenly there's a new person in your family, you just need a little break.
Yes.
And the fact that there's a small stipend and that there's also medical and dental coverage for the child. So, this is a great support system.
Yes, it's wonderful. From the beginning, from the first orientation where people can come and ask questions about fostering and adopting, right through the process and the entire approval process, there is support by CYFD. The process is free. We do not charge to adopt, and obviously we don't charge to foster, and there is a subsidy each month so that families that might consider adoption or fostering don't eliminate it because they can't afford it.
Well, what are the main myths about fostering and adoption that might keep people from choosing to participate?
I think a lot of people eliminate themselves from the pool because they're not aware that we actually actively seek out a broad spectrum of families. For example, in New Mexico, you can be single and adopt or foster. You can be what we call non-traditional, in other words, gay or lesbian family. Some of our most amazing and successful adoptions, in fact, are with non-traditional families.
And there's no upper age limit as long as you can
Yes,
get around.
yes, as
Yeah.
long as you're healthy. And in fact, we have some amazing foster and adoptive parents who are also grandparents. And yes, good point. You have to you be able to get around
Keep
and
up with the
yeah, keep
kids.
up with the kids. Um, and so that's important.
You do ask on some of your rack cards simply, are you ready? And so explain, when we look at these kids, and I think of Faye in particular, that suddenly in this wonderful adoptive family, this musical talent that no one knew she didn't know she had, suddenly blossomed. And the question, when we look at these faces, you ask, are you ready? And I also ask, is love enough? Do you, what can you give to help this little, this young person? Um, Tell me what people should think about and ways besides adopting and fostering that people can help.
Yes, the department redesigned their information cards, the rack cards, not that long ago because we do want people to realize that love is important in all relationships, family relationships, but that you have to realize that you do need to have a certain level of commitment and dedication and patience with the children because they've been through a lot. They've developed maybe certain behaviors around themselves to deal with the situations they were in. So that's important to note. But that there is a lot of support for the children and the families, all kinds of counseling, and just all kinds of support is there for the child as the child goes through this. And the families have to be committed to providing, for example, transportation to appointments and that kind of thing. Um, Fostering and adopting is very important, of course. We're always looking for foster and adoptive parents, and especially encouraging foster to adoption, families that would foster and then adopt the child if the child doesn't go home. But there are so many other ways that people can help. Everything from volunteering, I have no staff at CYFD, but I have an incredible group of volunteers. Some of them are mutual friends of ours, Betsy and
Yeah.
others, who make it possible for us to have the big adoption events that we have. So volunteering is important. We have the Heart Gallery of New Mexico Foundation, which Gerald Peters started after he saw, I was trying to expand my work, and we let's face it, it's tough here in New Mexico, the economic climate, and so he started a foundation, and people can go to heartgallerynmfoundation.org, and they'll see the incredible things that this organization does. So people can donate to that. The money goes directly to help children, either to help them find a family or if a child, needs a musical
Well,
instrument.
you told me about the drum for the Native
Yes.
American child. Tell us that.
Yes, we have a little boy named Joaquin, and recently I put together a drumming workshop with a local drummer who comes from Nigeria. His name is Akim, and he builds these beautiful African drums. And so we had a teen drumming event. We actually had adoptive families there who were interested in teens also. We did place a 15-year-old. But Joaquin was too young to attend. He's not a teen yet. And so the foundation purchased a Native American drum for him, and he plays that regularly. Before when he wants a little healing moment, he'll sit down and he'll play his Native American drum.
So, one thing through all of this, you are the prime mover. You're the one who had this idea and who started it, and you call forth really in these photographs and in the stories that you tell about these kids' courage, the courage that it takes for a little kid to really face life alone. And so, what kind of courage does it take for a potential adoptive parent or a foster parent or a volunteer? I mean, how can we call that forth?
I think it's a leap of faith. I really think so. It turned out that we have a huge pool of photographers here in New Mexico. And people, these children, every time they step in front of the camera, every time they agree to have a plan of adoption, because especially when they're 14 and over, they can decide they don't want to be adopted. So if you see any kids who are 14 or over in the Heart Gallery, they have taken that leap of faith and they have gone out on that limb. And the families kind of need to do the same thing. They need to fully research, of course, the process and talk openly about everything with their social worker. When they are in the process of being matched with a child, they get an overwhelming amount of documentation, which we feel is important. We want them to go into it with their eyes open. But also we want them to have a kind of a sense, a feeling about the child, which they can sometimes obtain through a portrait and sometimes through meeting the children at our adoption events.
Well, we're out of time. I wanted to get to, you had written a wonderful piece about how photography has really changed this communication between a prospective parent and between the child, but we'll have to save that for another time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and we really appreciate it. This is how people learn about these children and how they can help them.
So you can go to cyfd.org, right?
Yes.
And the Heart
yes.
Gallery site is?
Is Heart Gallery NM Foundation.org. And on the CYFD website, you will see actually the Heart Gallery children.
And our guest today is the founder of the Heart Gallery, Diane Granito. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm Lorene Mills. I'd like to thank you, our audience, for being with us today on Report from Santa Fe. We'll see you next week.